Welcome to my great English channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. There was a soft sound of footsteps on the porch, and Miss Allen Harding went to see. She saw a small figure standing there among the rose bushes. Not one of the nearby kids, but a lovely little girl with curly gold hair, big, brave brown eyes and cheeks and lips as bright as the red roses nearby. She was a tiny thing not even 5 years old, wearing a white dress, a wide red belt and a hat that she held in her hand by its red strings. She looked so lively and colorful, like a surprise visitor, that it seemed as if one of the flowers in the yard had transformed into a little girl and come up to the porch. "Do you need anything?" Miss Harding asked, approaching the little girl gently. "No, thank you." "Did you need my father, Dr. Harding? Were you sent to fetch him?" The child looked at her, seeming a bit surprised by all the questions. "No," she replied after a moment. "I'm Rosebud, and I don't need anyone. Jane told me to come here, and she comes soon." She spoke with unusual correctness, as if repeating something she had learned. "And who is Jane?" Miss Harding asked. The child looked puzzled. "Jane," she repeated, sounding unsure. "Well, she's Jane, not your mom." "No, just Jane." "And why did Jane want you here?" "She said I should come, and she'd be here soon." The child repeated her lesson. It seemed there was nothing more to ask, but Miss Harding invited her into the cool living room to wait for Jane, and gave her some strawberries and cream in a brightly painted saucer, a treat that all children enjoyed. Rosebud enjoyed it too, tapping her spoon on the saucer when she finished. "Can I keep this saucer while I'm here?" she asked. "Not to take away, just to have it around, you know." "Of course," said Miss Harding. Even more puzzled, had a magical creature come to stay? Were there really fairies after all? And was this one of them? She tried to entertain her young guest, and found her quite interested in pictures, and happily spent an hour playing with a box of red and white chess pieces. As evening approached, Miss Harding's curiosity overcame her politeness, and she looked out the window, asking, "I wonder where your Jane could be presently." Jane said presently. The child answered calmly. Returning to the chess pieces, Miss Harding heard her father's car pull into the yard, and slipped out to talk to him. She told him the story, and the doctor let out a soft whistle, his usual reaction to surprises. "It seems to me," he said, "that Jane, whoever she is, meant to give us Miss Rosebud as a gift. Well, we'll make the little one comfortable tonight, and figure out what to do tomorrow." The little girl was easily made comfortable. She ate plenty of bread and milk for supper, along with more strawberries. Afterwards, she stood by the doctor. "I think you are a good Nan," she said with this serious tone that marked all her words. "I would like to sit with you." The doctor lifted her onto his lap, and she rested her little golden head against his coat. There was a warm spot under that coat, well known to many sick and poor people in the town. I believe the little golden head found that warm spot. He gently stroked her shining curls and then asked, Why do you think I'm a good man? Little Rosebud, my name is not Little Rosebud. I am Rosebud, she replied seriously. And I think you are good because you look so kind with your eyes. Most of the time the little girl spoke very clearly and properly. It was only when a word had a G sound that she replaced it with a D. And continued happily as the doctor held her. The warm spot under his coat grew even warmer. A little girl had been his final gift from his wife. Before she passed away, she had grown to be about the same size as Rosebud. And then she had returned to her mother. It almost felt like she had come back again. And it was her head against which his heart was beating. He motioned for his daughter to come over. Do you have some of Aggie's stuff? He asked. This child needs to be comfortable and should go to bed soon. No, the child said. I'm staying here until the moon comes. That means time for bed, yes. I have them, Miss Harding replied. She had loved Aggie so much that it felt wrong to dress this stranger child in her late sister's clothes. But at the same time, she felt happy to have another little girl to care for and hug. She left the room and quickly returned, calling her father. Oh, come here. I found this in the hall. It's a big basket full of all sorts of clothes. And it's labeled for Rosebud. Look, there's everything a child needs. The doctor had put the little girl down, but she was still holding his hand. I think he said that Jane has been here, and she doesn't plan to take away our Rosebud. But the little one, still holding on to him, said, I don't think it's time yet. Jane wouldn't come until later. Do you love Jane? The doctor asked, looking down at her flower-like face. Jane is not my mommy, she is just Jane, she answered when the moon rose. The little girl willingly went to bed, and all night long Miss Ellen Harding held her in her arms, just like she used to hold her little sister before she passed away. People said Miss Ellen had become cold and quiet since Aggie's death. She felt like she had been frozen. But as she lay there holding the soft, round bundle of joy in her arms, the ice began to melt. A tender flower of love began to bloom in her heart, which had grown hard and cold. There was no talk of sending Rosebud away, although some people wondered why the doctor kept this child, about whom he knew nothing. But he wanted her, and Miss Allen wanted her too. Indeed, she brought joy and life back into their quiet home. She wasn't a perfect child. She had good manners, but she could be stubborn. When she decided to do something, it was hard to change her mind unless the doctor intervened. And then she always obeyed right away. But despite her flaws, they found her completely delightful. The doctor always came home with something in his pocket to reward her. Miss Ellen was devoted to her, and Mistress Eulalie in the kitchen was ready to do anything for her. Often when she went to bed, the doctor and Miss Ellen used to talk about her unusual arrival. We'll lose her one day, the doctor would say, sighing. No one willingly abandons such a child. She's only entrusted to us for a while, and eventually we'll have to let her go. Would you regret having her, father? Miss Ellen would ask even if it's for a short time. And the doctor would reply, "No, because she's made me feel young again. I won't complain when the tough times come, because we've experienced the good times, and we know how wonderful they are." But the child lived with them as if she would stay with them forever. If she had any memories from before she came there, she never mentioned them after the first time. She never talked about Jane or her parents, but she was as happy as could be, bringing joy and brightness to their home. As the days, weeks, and months passed, it became October. One day the doorbell rang and Mistress Mulany went to answer it. She quickly came to the room where Miss Ellen was, with Rosebud playing nearby, and signaled to her mistress, "Someone's asking for the child." She said, "Should we hide her? It'd be tough for the doctor if she's taken." "No, we must see who it is and do what's right," Miss Ellen replied, though her lips trembled a little. She went to the door, and there stood a woman who looked like a well-dressed nanny. "I've come," the stranger began. But Rosebud heard her voice and rushed to the scene. "It's presently," she exclaimed. "And there's Mommy." And she ran down the path and into the arms of a lady waiting nearby. Miss Harding descended the steps. "You've come to take Rosebud, I see, and she's more than ready to go with you. I thought we had made her happy." The child noticed the hint of disappointment in Miss Ellen's voice and turned towards her. "You've been good, oh, so very, very good," she said, "but this is Mommy. I trusted my darling with you in a very unusual way." The lady began, "But trust me, I knew exactly who I was leaving her with. I was terrified that she might be taken from me, and I couldn't keep her until I legally became her only guardian. But you've made me forever grateful, and I'll try to repay you someday. But could you wait here until my father comes back? He loves Rosebud so much. It would be cruel to take her away before he gets to say goodbye." "You're right," the stranger replied politely. "Jane, go with the car to the hotel and I'll come or send for you when needed." In a few moments, the unfamiliar lady was sitting in the doctor's living room. Miss Harding now saw where Rosebud got her bright, determined beauty. "I need to explain," the mother said, lifting her child onto her lap. "I'm Mrs. Matheson. My husband passed away, and Rosebud has a very, very large fortune of her own. Her uncles, who were supposed to manage her money by her father's will, also wanted custody of her. I had to fight hard for her. They were dishonest men, and I was afraid to keep Rosebud with me, in case they tried to claim her. So, I decided to let her stay with you for the summer. I can never thank you enough for taking care of her. You can thank us only by not taking her away completely. We've grown to love her dearly." After some time, the doctor came home and heard the whole story. It was a week before Mrs. Matheson could bring herself to take back the child she had entrusted to them. Then, not long after, the doctor and Miss Ellen had to visit Rosebud. Soon after that, Mrs. Matheson had to bring her back again. All the back and forth became very troublesome. So they found it easier eventually to live together. Before Rosebud came, the doctor had considered himself old, even though he was only 45. But as he said, Rosebud made him feel young again. Rosebud's mommy found herself able to love him very much. But Miss Ellen always said it was Rosebud and no one else whom her father married, and that he had loved the borrowed flower from the beginning.